ook dit al. En ik heb de presentatie klaarstaan, dus in principe zijn we helemaal klaar ervoor.
Oké.
Er zou nog wel... Ja.
Ik denk dat we nog wel wat mensen verwachten.
Ja, dat denk ik ook. Deze notetakers laat ik maar ook toe.
Ja.
Judy. Ja, zie ik eens. Ik had toch goed aangevoeld.
Ik zal de microfoon uitzetten.
Zal ik bedanken?
Hi everyone, how are you doing?
Hello, good morning, Judy.
Good afternoon.
That's right. That's right. Of course. It's a good reminder for us to hurry up and let you get off into the evening. In plan. So here it's 8 a.m. in the morning in the Netherlands, and with you guys, it's late in the afternoon. So I suggest we get going while the latest set of participants joins. I see Aditya joining and Asadi also. So I hope you don't mind that I'm getting started. Now, as some practicalities for the meeting, we've muted everyone apart from ourselves, selfishly. And if you have a question or comment at any point, please feel free to interrupt. In the Dutch fashion, that means you scream and shout and you raise your hand. And it would also help if you show your face, then we know we have to shut up and give you the floor. So on behalf of the Green Gold Label Foundation today, you have in the call Kees, our chairman. He will wave briefly. That is Kees. You have Judith, whom you know from your emails and from earlier interactions, I think. Judith, if you can also briefly wave. My name is PJ or Paul Jacob, and I'm in the team together with Kees and Judith. The person that's missing is Rob. I'm going, yeah, exactly. Mute one more participant. Yeah, so thank you. And during today, we will discuss the new documents that we've updated and published early November, end of October. And this is the first discussion on those new documents. These are going to be very important for you to study after this introduction call and to discuss going forward with us. And so please bear in mind, this is just the first introduction where we highlight the most critically changed topics. For you now, the time, 2 months to review and study the documents and give us feedback. And then there is a period of harmonization. So this is not the last time we will talk about these new documents. So if there's anything unclear, interrupt. We will be recording this meeting, so you can see that in the top left hand of your screen with the red button. It's being recorded and you will receive the recording, and you will also receive the final presentation as we will discuss today. You might have noted that the title page of the presentation that I sent was not yet updated for this webinar, but still had the title from a previous webinar. So with all of that done, what I would like to confirm is that all of our certification bodies, including the ones that we've added later, are present. And I would like to do that by the person who we believe to be the contact person, our point of contact for each of the certification bodies. Now, what I would appreciate is if I go over the list of all of them. If the person is present, can he unmute, say yes, and promise to send to us, to the address info@greengoldlabel, an overview of all the auditors and participants on your CB's behalf that participate in this call. So please, like Mutu has already done, send me a list of everyone that is participating in the call. So it's easier for us to track who has received this webinar and who hasn't. And I'd like to start with Karsurin. Fajar or Azara, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Hey, Fajar, good to hear you. Could you send us a list of the Karsurin participants after this call, Fajar?
Will do.
Thank you, much appreciated. Then I go into Control Union. Robin, are you there?
Hi, this is Natasha. I'm from Control Union. I will respond. Hi, I will respond now, to our team.
Okay, that is super. So send me a list of all the participants on behalf of Control Union, please.
Okay.
Then I was wondering, Ariati from Intertech, are you there? Ariati, are you in the call? I saw you on the list. Oh no, you haven't joined yet. Who's on the call on behalf of Intertech? Nobody? Hi. Hi, nice to hear you, Rasmat. Could you please send us a list of all the participants on behalf of Intertech in this call after the call? Much appreciated. Thank you. Then Mutu certification I have. Jacinta from SPC Asia Certificatie, Asia Certificatie. Are you there? Somebody
Yes,
from...
here.
Nice to hear you. How are you?
I'm
Good. Could I ask you, could you send us a list of all the participants from SBC Asia Certificatie, please?
yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. From Sukofindo, is Intan on the call? Sukofindo, anyone? Then from Double Helix. Oh, sorry, did I miss anyone? From
Yes.
Sukofindo?
Double helix.
Double Helix, is it Stego?
Agus and Teguh.
No, that's okay. If you can send me a list of the participants on behalf of Double Helix, please.
Okay, yeah. Will send.
Thank you, Agus. Then from BM certification, is Bran in the call?
Hi, BJ. Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Bran. Could you
Yeah.
send me a list of the BM participants, please?
Yeah, it's going to be a very short list of only me, but yeah, I will send it to you.
Good. And then I have from Transcert, Rizal, are you in the call? Or somebody else from Trans Certification from Malaysia? No? Okay, so I miss participants from Sukofindo and from Trans. Is there any certification body in the call that I did not name? Okay, good. So I will dive in and I will share my screen for that purpose and then just briefly start the presentation. It's 8 minutes into the call and we have 1 hour and 22 minutes left. So let's get started. I'll share my screen like this. And Kees and Judith, can you confirm that you see it? Yeah, excellent. So this is the same presentation that you received with the corrected title. So this is the harmonization webinar where for the first instance we discussed the new documentation that we published last week. And I will first go into the objectives of this call and end the meeting with Q&A for you, for which we have reserved about 15 minutes. But as I mentioned, at any point during the presentation, feel free to interrupt. Share your screen or show your face, raise your hand and unmute your mic. In this call, we will discuss the new documentation and the way that it has been structured differently from what it was before. We will go into the details of what we call GGL scopes. We will discuss that in a bit more detail. We'll show you how to recognize documents by their versions and how to link them back to previous versions using our changelog. And then we'll explain a little about the new participant fees later on. You have received my email with the notification that we're going to change the participant fees. And the change is not so much in the fees themselves. They don't change, they don't increase or go down, but the way that we structure them has been clarified and changed. So these will become valid as of the 1st of January next year, 2026. So most of the time we will spend discussing the new documentation. We will take approximately 50 minutes for that from now onwards. Then we'll have 15 minutes to discuss what we expect from you, our certification bodies. Of course, your understanding of these new documents, your comfort with them, your internal procedures on how to guarantee that when you certify, that you certify reflecting the documents, for us is super crucial. You are basically the arm with which we as GGL operate. So we would like to spend some time discussing with you your roles as a certification body and also make sure that we're on the same page with that. Then the last 15 minutes we'll have for Q&A, but probably that we will consume with the discussions that might follow later. All good? Anything to add, Kees? No?
No, nothing to add, but maybe you could enlarge the presentation.
Oh, that's good. Let's see if I can do that. I can share like this on my screen.
Better, super.
Sure. Even I can now read it without my reading glasses. Can you imagine? So super. I'm into the new document structure. So as you might have seen on our new documentation page, we have structured our new documents into 3 groups. One on the left is the overall documents. Second, in the middle is the modular instructions. And the third is the guidances. And one guidance you have already studied in detail, that's the GHG tool that we published. And the GHG tool is applicable to all modules. Now, why have we done that? Because for us, it's very important to state that we're not a regulator. We're not democratically elected as a certification scheme, and therefore we will make significant efforts to integrate different regulations into our scheme. And that's why we need those modules. And modules you can see horizontally, red instructions, red guidances, fit-FIP instructions, fit-FIP guidances, reflecting our discussions with regulators on what extra requirements on top of our scheme they have for their regulations. Yeah, this is why we've had to restructure our scheme into modules. And the module that is most relevant for all of you is the FIT module, the module for the Japanese market, for the feed-in tariff and the feed-in premium. So that's going to be most of the scope of the discussion today. Now, I'm going to go to the next page. And this is then all of the documents into those three categories. So on the left, you'll see all of the overall documents that I'm highlighting with my mouse. And you'll see that many of them relate to the setup and governance of our foundation. And so our articles of association, the regulation, which you know, and it has been updated, to new types of documents, scope definitions, and document structure, that is behind the screen, document structure and scope definitions, those you haven't seen before. They're important for you to understand. The CB agreements to which you've all signed up, that you know very well, and two documents that define how we cooperate with other stakeholders than certification bodies, which we call partners. For example, our IT vendor. They're a partner, and we require that they behave in a certain way, that they conduct themselves in line with our code of conduct. So these documents, they deal with the way that we operate. Then we have the 5 standards, inconveniently numbered 1 through 6, we apologize. All have been updated. We have operating documents, the participant feeds that I just referred to, and then we have the modular instructions. All of this you will find also on our new web page. And I'll just quickly flip over to our new web page. You can see my screen again. This is documentation at .greengoldlabel.com. It is the new way in which we visualize the documents. And you'll see that how they work by the coloring. So when you go into a specific module, you will recognize that also the setup and governance, the standards and the operating documents apply. And so actually the local regulations for FIT and for RED come on top of our core regulation, which is here on the right, on the left. And when you go into a specific block, you will see all of the documents of that block. So you'll see the FIT module, you'll see how the current version that is still valid as of March 2024 is being in the process of being replaced by the FIT module B0. So you'll see that the document has received a new name. You'll also recognize that the status of this document is published and not active yet. So it's open for your feedback and your input. And not in this call, but make yourself comfortable with this way of viewing our documents. We've done it to facilitate version management, but to also clarify what's now the status of this document. And so it's supposed to make it easier for you to backtrack changes and to know what you're certifying against. So all documents have their current valid version or adopted version and their future version, which is published and not yet valid. That is what I would like to say about the document structure and about our website for now. More information about this you can find in this file document structure that I suggest you read before you read all of the. Any questions so far, my friends? Anu, did you have a question? No?
No, sorry.
It's okay, not a problem. But if you do, feel free to unmute your mic. So there's 40.
Okay, thank you.
So there's 40 documents now, slightly over 40, and they have multiple versions. So the thing becomes quite big and complex. Yeah, so that's why we have created this structure. So you always know at what element of our certification documentation are you looking? Where are you? Are you in a standard? Are you in an instruction or in a guidance document? Now, one element of those new documents, my friends, that's going to be super important and that shall take you a little time to become comfortable with is the definitions of GGL scope. Why do I say it like that? Because we as a foundation have struggled to come up with this right definition of scope quite a bit. And it has taken us a long time to become comfortable with this manner of structuring our scheme. So if it is all a bit overwhelming in this call, there will be more times that we're going to talk about this because of the cruciality of it. Yeah. So don't worry. I'm just going to briefly touch on it. And I expect that it will take you some time, but it's okay. Now, of course, there's other elements in the new documentation that have also been updated. And these I will partly also pinpoint in this call, but I will definitely also leave it to you and explain how you can easily reference to the things that have changed compared to the previous versions. I'm going to move to the next page. This concept of scope integrates different regulations into a single set of GGL standards. So you could see it as a second set of filters. We have the first filter to set criteria for sustainability. That is the GGL scheme. And often, actually always, it's a very strict filter. So in all cases, it's stricter than any of the regulatory filters. But countries have particular filters of their own. For example, Japan has these lists of eligible fuels that I know you can dream of. You know all of them by heart. That's something that we as a scheme don't have as a filter. So automatically, we've had to create a structure in our scheme that allows for these two types of filters, the GGL filter and the regulatory filter. Now, and these regulatory filters, that's the things we negotiate with the governments, and we clarify with them how we interpret it. And often they change the way in which they set their filters in their discussions with us. Yeah. So because of these multiple regulations that are different and impose extra filters on top of our GGL scheme, we've had to create those modules. And at the moment, we have two regulatory modules. That's SD Plus or Plus Plus in the Netherlands and FitFit in Japan. For RED 2 and RED 3, we are not yet recognized as a voluntary scheme, but we do expect that that will come shortly. Now, I have to say, I can't see the chats. Okay, so if you see a hand popping up or somebody sharing a chat, will you let me know? Yes, thank you. It's because of these two regulatory schemes that were approved for that we've had to create those modules, and RED 2, 3 still pending. We expect shortly, and of course, we've done a lot of work to get there. Now, to refresh your memories, this is how the GGL scheme works for any module. We have three types of roles in our scheme. We have a certification system that both certifies participants in one of these three roles and certifies the biomass that goes through the supply chain of these three types of participants. So our certification scheme requires that both each participant and the biomass that they trade or produce, that it is certified independently. And we have the standards, the GGL standards that you can always recognize with an abbreviation that looks like this, GGL S2 or S1. We have the standards that determine first what role you can play. And then we have the concept of scopes that limit the the reach with which you can trade or be active. So, for example, you're certified against a set of standards as a participant, but you are also certified to trade within a certain scope. That scope then limits what you can and cannot do. Yeah, so that's important. Now, not only do participants get a scope, but also biomass has a scope. To give you an example, if biomass meets the criteria of currently document 1D, as well as the sustainability requirements from the GGL standards, it has as a regulatory scope FIT-FIP. If it's PKS, it means it's category 5, residues and wastes. So the scope then is defined as FIT-FIP category 5. FIT-FIP category 5 GGL certified biomass cannot be traded within SDE Plus, because SDE Plus has a different set of requirements. And that's why the term scope limits the extent to which both participants can trade within the GGL system and biomass can be traded. And the scope for an entire supply chain for both participants and the biomass that they trade shall be shared, shall be the same. And that sharing mechanism is not so easy. I'll get to it in more detail. So, and this I'm just going to show very briefly. You can find this table also in the scope definitions document in our overall documents on our website. You know that to be a biomass producer for categories 1 through 2, 3, so for woody biomass, you need GGL standard 5 certification. You know that for agricultural biomass, to produce that, you need GGL S2 certification. You know that anybody within the GGL certification system to be active in supply chains always needs GGL S1 and S4. So the GGL S5 and S2 requirements, they come on top. You also know that to convert GGL biomass into its end use, at the moment power and or heat, you need GGL S6 certification. So the standards against which you're certified and the biomass that you trade determine the role that you can play within the certification system. That's step 1. Step 2 is that next to that, both participants and GGL biomass shall be certified against a regulatory module. And that then, depending on the category of biomass, the type of the participant, and the regulatory module, the scope of a trade within the GGL system is defined. So what I would like you to do is reread scope definitions, go through the presentation with your team, and see if you can make sense of the following examples that we have put together for your convenience in this supply chain. It's a very simple example of how our scopes work. First, on the top row, you'll see 4 participants. Participant 1, 2, 3, and 4. On the left-hand side, you see stock A, so a batch of stock. And you'll see that stock A at some point enters the GGL biomass supply chain. So you'll see that it enters our certification system, it enters the chain of custody. And it does so with a raw material statement. Yeah? Once it's entered the GGL supply chain, it gets traded, and ultimately it gets converted into power and or heat. So at that point, it leaves this green, light green block of the GGL chain of custody, the GGL supply chain. And I would like to talk you through the trades that happen very briefly so that you see why it is important, the scope. Here you see stock that goes into the GGL supply chains is FitFip category 5, and it's actually PKS. It's GGL certified, and its origin is first collection. So participant 1 is a first collector of PKS with the scope FitFip category 5. You'll see that for participant 1, that is something that he is certified he can do, because his scope is also FitFip category 1 through 5. So this stock falls within the scope of participant 1. You also see that participant 1 is certified against GGL S1 and S4, which is what you need to be a first collector. Yeah. Participant 1 then 50 tons, batch A1 to participant 2, and the other half, batch A2 to participant 3. You also see that participant 2 can receive this biomass and trade it because he or she is GGL S1 and S4 certified, and the scope of this participant 2 meets the scope of the biomass that he receives, because he's also has as a scope FitFip category 1 through 5, and this falls within that because it's FitFip category 5. So far, so good. Participant 3 only has one scope, FitFip category 1 through 5, therefore can receive this biomass, 50 tons. And that means that both participant 2 and participant 3 can independently sell their stock of PKS, 50 tons for participant 2 and 50 tons for participant 3, to participant 4. You'll see that participant 4 carries GGL S6 certification. That means that participant 4 can also convert biomass into power and/or heat, is a so-called end user. So what can participant 4 do? She can merge both stocks, issue a product certificate upon conversion of the biomass into its end use. And that means that this original batch of stock A, through 2 types of trades, to participant 2 and participant 3, ends up with participant 4, and participant 4 can then convert both batches into power and/or heat by issuing a product certificate. You also see that each of the transaction between the participants has a transaction certificate. So this is the concept of scope. Stock and participants both have one or more scopes, and for the trade that they do, at least the scope must be shared amongst all participants and the biomass. If it doesn't, the GGL certification gets lost. So in our new modular scheme, you could say there's a couple of rules associated to scope. And I'm not going to go through all of them. I assume that you will have read it in the pre-reading, but I will point out just a couple that are very important. And I will tell you that we will follow, say, the induction of this new scheme, of course, closely. There will be another harmonization webinar sometime in Q1, which we will still schedule, and that will include an exam. And then some of these rules that will come back in exam questions. And it's important for us that all of our certification bodies, that they positively understand and are comfortable with the concept of scope. So these rules that you see here, they're important for all of you to ultimately to understand. One rule to start with is that you as a certification body, you also have a scope. Some certification bodies are approved for both SDE Plus and for FitFip, others only for FitFip. So if you are only accredited for FitFip in Japan, for our document 1D today, document B0 in the future, if you're only accredited for FitFip, you cannot make certification decisions or activities for SDE Plus. If you have both, you can. Now, that's one important element, I think, of this GGL scope concept that you should understand. Second rule that I would like to highlight, including the reference, as you see, of where you can find this rule, in which principles of document S1 in this case, or principle of document scope definitions. Biomass can only be traded when both the participants and the biomass share the same regulatory scope. So a participant with GGL scope FitFip category 5 cannot sell GGL certified biomass with the same category, 5 and FitFip, so scope FitFip category 5, to a buyer that has as a scope SDE Plus category 5, because they do not share the regulatory model. Here, you see, SDE Plus for buyer, FitFip for seller. If they still sell, they can, but the biomass loses its certification. Then on the second page, two batches of biomass cannot be mixed if they do not share the same regulatory, the scope or the certification. I'll give an example. So you have a participant, he has as a scope FitFip category 1 through 5 and SDE Plus category 1. He wants to mix sawdust, that is FitFip category 5 and GGL certified, with wood chips that are SDE Plus category 1 certified. And he wants to mix it and create pellets from it. Can he do that? No, he cannot do that, because not both parts of the mix do not share the regulatory module. So when you mix it, all of it loses its scope and hence its GGL certification. Then,
well, Jacob, there is a question from Catherine. How can the CB identify which scope they are accredited?
4. Yeah, it is on your, that's a good question. On your CB agreement, in the annex, you will see a list of the scopes against which you're accredited. Now, typically, if you have a CALM accreditation, you're accredited for FitFip. Why? Because SDE Plus requires a different type of accreditation, and so does RED in Europe. So to be certified against SDE Plus, you also need the recognition from the Dutch government. And there's 3 certification bodies that have that at the moment. The accreditation from the Dutch government. And 2 of these 3 then have taken the next step and also sought recognition for SDE Plus. That is something that you have to set up with the Dutch government. So in your CB agreement, in the annex, you'll find the scopes against which you're accredited. If you have a question or something is unclear with the copy of your CB agreement, you should let us know with a direct message. Case, there's more questions, I guess.
It's not to the Dutch government that the CB should address themselves, but to the RVA, to the accreditation body in the Netherlands.
That's to get accredited, and then there's the RVO to be approved for SDE Plus. Yeah.
That's another phase, yeah.
Yeah. So, but if there's anything unclear, Karsurin, let us know. And I know we've discussed this before with a certain participant with the shipment that was going to Europe. So I understand the complexity of it, but please let us know if when you look at your annex from your certification agreement, if anything is unclear. Now, I will not go into the other examples. I will ask you to study them and we will discover if all of it is clear. I will just mention one because of the underlying principle. As you know, in our GGL S5 standard, we have 2 certification claims for woody biomass. One is called GGL certified. That's really our highest set of sustainability requirements, and it applies to both the biomass and the forest management units. Then we have a second claim, which is GGL controlled woody biomass. Also very strict set of requirements, but especially on the forest management unit, which typically takes a couple of years to reach the status at which they can be certified, the requirements are a little weaker. So for us, GGL certified and GGL controlled, the strictest and slightly less strict. That's important because it will play a role throughout the discussion of GGL scopes also. So I want to give this example. When you mix woody biomass and one part of the mix is GGL certified and the other is GGL controlled, the whole mix loses its GGL certified claim and converts or degrades into GGL controlled. So when you mix things, typically the mix assumes the worst or the weakest claim. This is for GGL controlled and certified, but as you will remember, this is also for GHG emissions. So when you mix batches, one that has a very high emission, GHG emission value associated to it, and the other one very low, don't get tricked. The one that has a low emission value is actually better than the one that has a high emission value. And when you mix them together, the one that has the lowest emission value degrades into assuming the GHG value of the highest part of the mix. Yeah. So typically when you mix batches within the Green Gold Label certification system, the mix assumes the worst performing claim or emission value of the part of the mix. And then degradation concept, because it will play a role also when you go through scopes. Now, this call is just as an introduction. Yeah, so to warm up your brains on this sunny afternoon in Asia, so that we plant the seed and you dwell on it and you think about it and you review it and you study it, and it will be followed up upon with further harmonization efforts at our end. Yeah. Is there any question that you have at this stage, my friends? Beyond what I have discussed or something that was unclear? I don't believe you. But that's okay. I go to the next pages. And I trust that when you have a question, you will let me know. For the element of GGL scope, both the regulatory module and the biomass category is important. How do you determine what biomass category material belongs to? You will find in GGL, Zuri, I think you start sharing your screen. That might mean you have a question. Is that correct?
Oh, sorry.
Ah, what a pity. I was looking forward to a question. But in any case, I'll just continue. So how do you determine what biomass category a raw material belongs to? You will find in GGL S1, the updated version, this decision tree. So you will need to know this decision tree when you decide what product category or GGL biomass category a material belongs to decide the scope of the biomass. For example, when you look at woody biomass and when you have to determine whether it's a residue in category 5, like sawdust, or whether it's a primary product that got harvested, let's say at a large forest management unit in category 1, you have to take that material and its origination through this logic and determine whether you think it's category 1 or category 5. Now, when somebody either produces or collects either category 1 woody biomass or category 5 biogenic residues and wastes, it has a big implication for the certification that they have to have. Because category 1 production of woody biomass, you will have to have GGL S5 certification, but you do not when it's category 5 biogenic residues and wastes. So this logic that we've tried to make as Cartesian as we can, so beyond any shadow of doubt, so super easy, that's the idea behind this logic tree. You should be familiar with it. And I have to admit, I think that when you read it, there still might be questions. So do let us know. And I think so because within our team and with our advisory council, we've had those types of discussions also. So we know that it takes a little time to become comfortable with it. And it's about the words like directly originate that you see here, or co-product or byproduct. It's about those types of words and what precisely do they mean for us that will make this allocation logic useful for you. I'm going to go to the next page. So, Bran, you have a question. Thank you.
Hi, PJ. Yeah, so regarding product category, in certain regulatory like Japan Feed, there's also AR, WB, or category A.2 or B point something. Will this work like both type of category, or in the future it will be only one type of category?
No. It's a super question, and thank you. This is a good question. So remember that in the beginning of this call, I explained that modules are really a second set of filters reflecting what regulations require. For example, Japan, FIT. And the first set of filters is the green gold label standards and the green gold label criteria that are always higher than what governments require. So this allocation scheme here, Bran, on this page, it's the GGL stream. The second stream, the one that you refer to for FIT with the eligible fuels and the agricultural residues and the residues, the woody biomass, it comes on top. So in a raw material statement for FIT, what will you typically do? So check this guidance document on the raw material statement for FIT. You will apply one GGL biomass category to, let's say, PKS, and typically PKS will fall in GGL category 5, but you will also apply the Japanese categorization. So this will be an eligible fuel, and it will be an agricultural residue, and it will be on the positive list of eligible fuels in FIT. Both categorizations are important for the raw material. Yeah, and a material can be both. And our categorization is independent of what the Japanese government thinks it is. And they work together in the two screens, the two sets of filters that we have. So, for example, confusingly, but we're not guilty, confusingly, PKS can be a biogenic residue and waste from GGL's perspective in category 5. And it can also be an agricultural residue from the positive list of eligible fuels for the Japanese FIT module. Both categorizations are valid. Did it answer your question?
Yeah, okay, understood. Yeah. Thank you.
So this will come back, your question will come back, and check if I'm right. So let me know. This will come back in the raw material statement template that you will have to classify a biomass or an input material for FitFit, both in the GGL categories and the Japanese categorization. And I know that you will say yes, because we drafted the documents, but do check the consistency of my explanation with the documents just for your own understanding. Now, with that, I think I've touched enough upon the concept of scope. And I have about 10 minutes now to talk you through the other changes. Some of them are still significant. So I'm going to move to the next page unless there's another question. No? The participant fees. So you will have received the document that is also published on our website. You can review it, you can comment upon it, and you can, give your stakeholder feedback. The fees have not increased. Our fees will always be charged to you, our certification bodies, and you can choose how you charge your participants for it, either by transaction certificate or by audit that you perform or by raw material statements that you verify. You choose your own way of charging your clients, the participants, but we will all charge you in the same way. And that's described in this document. And we will become a little more strict on that. So we will require that you pay promptly, and where there might have been some shadows of doubt in the past about the calculation of the fees, we expect that this will be resolved shortly. And then we're going to be, in the true Dutch fashion, very strict on it. So what's changing in this new document? The way we charge fees for inputs from endorsed schemes. So if an endorsed scheme gets brought has biomass that is certified against that scheme, and the endorsement meets the requirements of GGL, hence also the Japanese government, and a GGL participant brings that endorsed scheme biomass into the GGL supply chain, a light green shaded area, then there will be a fee applicable equivalent to the variable fee of 11 euro cents. And unlike other schemes, anybody in the GGL supply chain with the appropriate standards, so with the appropriate scope and with the appropriate standards, can bring in biomass from endorsed schemes if these endorsements meet the requirements. So that's, I think, an important change, addition to what we already had in the previous version of the participant fee document. Second element that has changed, and some of you will recall that how in the past, actually, we relied upon your own administrations to tell us how much we could charge for the participant fees. You will have noted that that's gradually changing, that it's changing from the fees being based on GG Ledger, on the volumes that are being brought into GG Ledger for the variable fees, and the volumes that are traded within GG Ledger for the fixed fees. So we also know that GG Ledger was launched in May this year, formally, and that we're still working on it big time, and that sometimes the fact that we're still working on it means that you'll have to drain stocks and then request stocks again. Now, we'll have to correct the GG Ledger volumes for these types of mechanisms because they don't really reflect the origination of biomass. No, they reflect the fact that GG Ledger is a work in progress and that it requires sometimes a bit of a workaround, and that workaround should not be the basis for calculating fees. So over time, as GG Ledger gets better and better, and it will continue to get better under Judith's leadership, over time, when GG Ledger gets better, you can imagine that there's less corrections that we'll have to do with it to determine the right basis for fees. And Robin, you have a question or comment, I don't know.
Thanks, PJ. I had a question about the number 1 and number 3 in this graphic, because am I understanding correctly that you now want to charge the variable fee based on incoming raw material, both from suppliers or own produced material?
And this is not a change, Robin. So I know you've had a discussion with us, with Rob, on the interpretation of, I think it was. No,
I'm not referring to certified material, but to raw material in this case.
No, so
now
when
it looks like...
No. The idea is that when raw material, so the arrow from a supplier goes to a first collector, you see that it crosses the light green area. You see, so it gets certified. It enters the GGL supply chains.
Yeah, but as an example, so a pellet producer will receive sawdust and chips, for example, to produce pellets, and this raw material will then, as I said, be converted into pellets, and then of course those pellets will be less volume than the original raw material statements which they receive. So I assume that the basis of the variable fee should be then based on the actual pellet production and not on the incoming raw material.
No, the basis of the fees is the raw material. And further down, this is also an important topic, by the way, Robin, further down the supply chain, even a trader can process products, can dry it or sieve it or mix it or blend it if it meets the requirements of GGL S1. And so it's not just upon entry into the GGL supply chains that products can be processed.
Yeah, I understand that, but if you receive 100 tons of sawdust and you only produce 90 tons of pellets, I assume that the variable fee should go over 90 tons and not over the 100 tons.
No, it goes on the 100 tons of raw material that you certify to be GGL compliant. And so the idea is here, don't forget...
but we I don't want to extrapolate it, but we certify the actual certified pellets and not the raw material. The raw material is not certified, right?
Hang on a second. You will have to verify that the raw material statement is correct, and there will be a raw material statement that has your verification process on it to determine that the categories that brand referred to are correct, to verify that the tonnage is correct, that the origin is correct, that the source of... So all of that shall be present and is the basis for the variable fee. And what I wanted to say is, I think you as a certification body should not underestimate the amount of work that you will do for raw material statements verification, and almost as much work, if not more, than for a transaction certificate. So I know that many certification bodies now charge I've seen your question fairly, I'll come back to you. I know you as certification bodies in many cases charge your participants based on transaction fees. I recommend from the bottom of my heart that you find a way to get compensated for your detailed work to verify raw material statements also. You will see that, especially under red, verifying the origin and verifying the geolocation of the origin and verifying whether it's actually residues and wastes or whether it's something else, it becomes increasingly important. So the amount of work that you as certification bodies have to do on assessing a raw material statement for its verification, it will increase. Reflect that in your rate agreements with your participants. You can also expect that over time, first fairly, then Bren, but hang on a second, you can expect that over time, this raw material statement will be integrated into GG Ledger. Fairly, you have a question first, and then it's Bren.
Hi, Paul. So my question is from Robin. So in GGL Ledger, there is no, when you request stock, there is no like sawdust, something like that. Will it be implemented in the GGL Ledgers? So, and then how GGL will calculate the raw material based on, because in the request stock is only wood pellet stock, is not the raw material on the stock. So how GGL will calculate the raw material stock based on the one that we request in the GGL?
Yeah, so I will respond fairly, but I will also ask Judith if she has more information to add. So your question is, if I understood correctly, the request stock process in GG Ledger now only allows for requesting certain product names. Yeah. And that's correct. So at the moment, we're testing the rollout with one certification body and 2 participants of changes to GG Ledger in 4 elements. And I think you have seen a message in GG Ledger that has announced that these things are changing. And one of the 4 things that are changing is the request stock procedure, where there is going to be, it's going to better reflect the way that our regulation works. So the other, by the way, is that you can aggregate stocks into multiple stocks into a single transaction certificate. So that's the other one of these 4 changes. Now, Judith, when do we expect that we can give them more information about when this new release will go live?
Yes. So as PG was saying, we're currently testing the system. We received feedback from a selected group of testers, which will be discussed this week. So based on our discussions, we will be able to tell you in the course of next week when the major features will be rolled out.
So fairly, we know about this issue. Actually, it's being developed, it's being improved. And next week, we will tell you when you can expect to see it in GG Ledger. Bran, you also had a question.
Hi, PJ. Yeah, thank you. So actually, it's following up the discussion between you and Robin. So it's just as logical for the participant just to request stock when they already decided this material is going to be shipped out. Because then some people, like, they want to do it, they just do request stock and then see whether they can find a buyer later, which in this case, it might be problematic for them, because then the amount of stock requested might not be used for 100% SGGL. They can also sell domestically in the end. But in that case, economically, it won't be feasible for them, no? So, so in that case... Yeah, so there's no time restriction on how long they should do the request stock after they actually do the buying.
The criteria here is, Bran, that you as a certification body, you shall be able to verify that everything that's on the raw material statement is correct. And so if I take a long time and leave a pile of PKS somewhere, and I take a long time to request stock in GG Ledger when I have found a buyer, it will be more difficult for you to verify that whatever I claim this stockpile of PKS to be originating from, that it is correct. But that's what we require. We require you to verify that the origins, the nature, the georeference, the parties involved, the supplier verification program, that all of that is in place and verified to be correct when biomass enters the GGL supply chains. And the moment that any type of biomass enters GGL supply chains, even endorsed scheme biomass, it's with a raw material statement. So I think there should be an incentive for every participant to make up their minds what they want to do with biomass quickly after they have collected it, or ideally even before. So does that answer your question?
I mean, okay, that's all. Thank you.
Yes, so Judith, on behalf of us, has asked some of you as certification bodies to share with us your current raw material statements from participants. We've not received a lot of responses yet. For us, that's a big concern. So during this week still, the ones that have received a question from us to share 1 or 2 raw material statements with us, we will send you a gentle reminder. Then in a couple of weeks from now, the gentleness will be removed, and we will remind you that this is something we've requested. And if we haven't received it in 3 iterations of questions, we wonder whether it's there, actually. So this is important, this raw material statement. We spend a lot of time in the new document structure to strengthen the requirements, to know more and to know better what does the biomass originate from. Now you saw that the tone of my face also changed a little when I said that. These rates, like today, we have a notification period that we should inform you in advance, I think at least a month. Now, if I would expect that when we ask you to give us feedback on all documents, you also give us feedback on the participant fee document. We've published a new version. We have included this chart that you see on the right in the new version. Our fees are slightly more than half of other schemes' fees. So we have not increased the height of our fees. You have ample time to discuss these fees or legitimize these fees with your participants. So let us know. So if you have a strong point about anything in our new fee document, let us know. We're as part of the stakeholder consultation that's starting. I'm going to move to the next page, and I'm going to go back to this sheet that you've seen before, where we have 40 documents, out of which 20 are new. Now, I'm slightly colorblind, so we haggled a little within the team. What color should we give to those new documents? Can you see that some documents are gold colored and others are black? Yes. The gold colored have all been updated. So all the gold colored documents are the ones on which we have now started our stakeholder consultation with their publication. Yeah. And in a little more detail, all documents now that have been published to replace previous versions at a later point show this icon on our website. And I've shown that before. That's this icon. So with this icon, you will recognize that it is a newly published document and that it's open for feedback. Secondly, all documents now have a change log. So that means that they have a register of changes compared to their previous versions. I'm just going to show you. If you open a document, you'll see that all documents have this same overview that you saw that I presented, have a table of contents that you can click, and have this set of changes compared to the previous version. So this new version 1.9 changes version 1.8, and it has these changes. Now, these are just high-level summaries. These are not ISCC type of literal changes, only the major changes we've listed. And you'll see that we'll publish it on the 7th of November and that we adopt it on the 1st of January, reflecting your feedback. And you'll see in the footer always the version date, the version number, and the name of the document. The other thing that you will see in every document is this glossary. Remember, when I showed the product biomass category logic, the decision tree to determine in which category does biomass fall, I referred to these words, directly originate. These things are all included in the glossary when they are present in a document, and that glossary phrasing is the same for every document. So read the glossary in each document if you're uncertain about what we exactly mean with it. Now, what I have explained is that every document has a change log. I want to say also that you recognize how important do we as a GGL team consider these changes to be. If they're very big, you see that the version, any questions? Yeah? Who's that? Nobody? So you see that if we consider documents to have been changed in a major way, we'll increase the first digit of the version. So V10 becomes V20. If we think, nah, not a big change, but a minor change, we increase the second digit of the version. So V10 becomes V1-1. So by the way that we have labeled the version and with the change log compared to the previous version, you shall be able to determine what's changed. And as I mentioned, before you go and navigate the new documentation, it is our suggestion that you read this document first, the GGL document structure that you can find in the overall documents right after the Articles of Association of the GGL Foundation. So start reading the document structure and then dive into the rest. That's our new documentation. It has been between 1.5 and 2 years of work by a long team, including our advisory council. So we've spent a lot of effort in it, and we would like you to do the same. Is there any question that you have at this point? No? We hope, Robin.
Yeah, just curious, is there any page somewhere about the stakeholder consultation? I would like to forward that to all of our clients as well to give feedback about the standards, etc.
Yes, there it is. So I show you in a minute. But thank you for the question, Robin. Much appreciated. And by the way, within the course of this week, you will receive our email asking you to perform stakeholder consultation, and most major participants will also be included in it. So stakeholder consultation, we've now announced on LinkedIn, as you might have seen. We're announcing, the second step is we're announcing with you, our certification buddies, and the regulators, which we've informed. Then it's everybody. So stakeholder consultation is not just for you or participants, it's for all stakeholders. We even sent the stakeholder consultation to SBP, FSC, and ICC. Fairly has a question on the participant fee, I think. Fairly? Shall I read your... So the question from Fairly is, the updated participant fee is effective from January 2026. That part of your question is correct. So this year, it is still charged based on the previous regulation, which is based on quantity in TC? The answer is no, that's not correct. Also this year, the variable fee is based upon the volumes brought into GGL supply chains, like it has been in the past. And that's the current version, I think 1-3 stipulates that. Perhaps not super clearly, but that's how it works. So the fee that you will get is the fee that you've been discussing, I think, with Judith in the past, in the pro forma invoices. That's the fee that will apply to January 2026 until January 2026. And as of that moment that this new document goes live, it will be based on a new participant fee. I'm going to move on if it's okay. What I wanted to say is this stakeholder consultation process, it's open for everyone. And between the publication date of 7 November 2025 and 1st of January 2026, we're open for all feedback. also your feedback on the participant fee if you want. So, and we will do the announcement through our own communication channels, but you feel free to direct anyone to the stakeholder consultation page on our website that I will show in a minute. The idea is that at a certain point, we integrate feedback or not, depending on our internal decision making with the advisory council, and the documents get adopted. Now, the adoption date is set at 1st of January 2026. Then there will be 2 months in which we have time to harmonize towards the new set of documents. During those 2 months, before the effective date of the new document, the old version is also valid. So audits that you have scheduled already in the first 2 months of the new year, you can still do against the old version of the documents, even though the new version of the documents are valid too. Yeah? Then is the effective date, now scheduled for 2nd of March 2026. Throughout the remainder of the year, certification decisions, for example, transaction certificates, for example, scope certificates of participants, for example, raw material statements that you verified, remain valid if they were certified or verified against the old version. And only after that transition period, the old certificates against the old versions of the documents lose their validity. So it's a gradual implementation of the new documents. And the first important milestone is today, when we introduce it to you and ask you to review and study documents and give us your feedback. And we would like you to do that through a single point of contact. So what we prefer from you as our certification buddies is not to receive feedback from each of you individually, auditors, but to coordinate it with a central point of contact for us. Can you do that, please? Thank you. Now, to Robin's question, where can we find more about this stakeholder consultation? First, you go to our page. I close this. You see that in one menu, one page of the new documentation, there's the modules and the overall documents. And in another, there's the stakeholder consultation. In the stakeholder consultation page, you have more explanations about the feedback process, when we're asking it and how you can give it. To give feedback, you fill out this form with an email and you will receive a feedback form. It's an Excel template. That Excel template helps us to categorize the feedback that we receive. It will also ask you to judge. Do you think your feedback is major? Do you think your feedback is minor? So it has some parameters that you shall complete. And then you send it back. And you send it back to the email address that the feedback form has included. It's documentation@greengoldlabel.com. So, and it's really open for anyone. The only thing is certain terms and conditions apply. For example, when you submit feedback and we think it's a wonderful idea, you cannot come back to us and say, hey, it was my idea. I want some of the 11 cents. No. When you share feedback, it's our license to use it or not. Second important step is we will listen and evaluate your feedback, but it is not a prerequisite that we will integrate it. We will go through decision-making procedure with our advisory council, and we will integrate it or not. So you can give feedback, but that doesn't mean that you have the power of the pen. So these terms, everybody has to agree with before they submit. That's the practicalities of giving feedback that I wanted to show to you. Then what happens? We receive it. We think about it long and hard with our advisory council and integrate it or not. That we do latest by the end of December. On January 1st, we adopt the new documents. Now, hypothetically, if somebody has such a good and strong point that the people that have worked on this new documentation have missed, it could be that we decide to delay the adoption date. But that's not the plan. Today, the plan is to adopt as of the 1st of January. Then, during the adoption period, which is from 1st of January through 2nd of March, you shall expect that, to Fairly's question, GG Ledger harmonizes with the new scheme. One. Second, you shall expect that we will be inviting you for a second harmonization webinar that will probably be a bit longer, and it will be in training, and we haven't figured out precisely when and how we will do it, but it will come, and it will be ended with an exam, like we did in Jakarta. Then at the 2nd of March, our plan is that the documents become effective. That means that they shall be used and the previous versions become invalid to be used. That means that the old certification decisions, they don't lose their validity. That's for a later point, but you can no longer audit against the old versions after the 2nd of March. That's our plan. So that's the procedure that we have in mind. Now, we fundamentally believe that if many people from different perspectives look at the same document and give their feedback constructively, the documents get better and stronger. So with your feedback and your suggestions, you help us to make GGL a stronger and a better scheme with stricter requirements that are more practical. And that's what we're after. So really, we appreciate a lot your time to go through these documents in detail with all of your collective brains and help us to make these documents better and stronger. Important. What we've been through in this call is we've spent about an hour reviewing the new documentation, the scope definitions briefly, and the other changes. And we've discussed how the stakeholder consultation process works. We have 10 minutes left. My question to you is, if you have any questions, I'll stop sharing my screen and round up with this small set of to-dos and not to-dos. Astrid. Go ahead. First Astrid and Zuri. Can't hear you, Astrid. Could you put your comments in the chat perhaps for us? Louder. Astrid, we can't hear you. You have a question, you have your arm raised, but we can't hear you. I'll ask Zuri perhaps to ask his question, hoping that you get your mic to work.
Hi. Yeah, hi, Vijay.
Hi, can hear you loud and clear. Go, Zuri.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your explanation as well. I just want to confirm my understanding about what you explained regarding the mixed material before, where you said if GGL certified mix with the GGL control, and then it will be downgraded to the GGL control, right? And you also explain about if there is a mix of the GHG calculation, GHG emission, where if there is one emission, one TC that has GHG lower than the one that we mix on that operational, we will go with the higher because it's not acceptable anymore for the lower GHG. Is it correct?
It is correct.
And if when
Go ahead.
Yeah, but when I look at your standard in principle 10.7 and 10.8, where it explains about the mix, the GHG of the mix TC, where there's a formula here. So my question is, when we use this formula on the principle 10.8, it's only applicable for the same scope and same module, or it also applicable for all of the mix of the TC?
Will you do me a favor, Zuri, and I will not go into the details of your question in this call, but if you can share by email and allow me to make one general reflection on this example of the GHG emissions. As you know, our standard one also contains something as the volume credit system, which is basically the GGL mass balancing system. Yes, it is in our documentation, and it's not yet in GG Ledger, and it is not used a lot in practice yet. So the volume credit system, if that's what you're referring to, take it as a specialty that we'll come to later. First, on the degradation of the scope, please send me your question in detail so that I can look at the principles in the new document and respond to you. And I will include that response to your question in the email with the latest version of the document that I sent to all participants in the call. Astrid, did you have a question? No. Naina, do you have a question?
Yes, Paul Jacob, sorry to interrupt. There is a question from Astrid. It's in the chat box.
Oh, sorry. Slide 9. Okay, so Astrid's question is slide 9, which is the one that you see on my screen. A supplier that is certified under an endorsed scheme can sell material to a GGL participant as long as it's covered by a raw material statement. Just to confirm, does that mean that if an endorsed CPO mill has a contract with a GGL certified trader, the trader doesn't need to be certified as a first collector? Now, in theory, yes, Astrid, but please take a good look at our endorsed scheme documents. And that's document B.1, replacing 1C. You will see that the detail with which we endorse different schemes is very important. Some certification schemes are endorsed so that the biomass that is produced under those endorsed schemes can qualify as GGL biomass. One scheme in particular does not work like that. There, the participant or CPO mill is certified under that endorsed scheme, qualifies as a GGL participant. So assuming that your question is about the second way of endorsing an endorsed scheme entity as a GGL participant, then the answer is yes. And on the raw material statement, you shall confirm that the endorsement and the certificate of that participant, that it is valid, it meets the criteria of our endorsed scheme document, and that on that basis, their raw material statement allows them to transact directly with GGL participants. Did I answer your question? I assume so. Oh, and then I think there's another question that I see. Is there a transition period after new documents become effective? Yes, there is. And I'll just quickly go to that page. So the transition period, Tegu, is now through the end of 2026. So the timeline is as follows. First, now you give us feedback. That feedback we integrate, and by the 1st of January, we adopt the new documents that become valid. old documents stay valid. 2nd of March, new documents replace the old documents. You can no longer certify against the old documents after the 2nd of March. But through the end of the year, now 31st of December 2026, many moons away, 31st of December 2026, your old certificates or old raw material statements that you had certified against the old document versions remain valid. So yes, when you do a surveillance audit after March 2026, it shall be done against the new documents, and it shall be done prior through the end of the year, 31st of December 2026. So yes, your client certificate will still be valid after March 2026, but only until 31st of December 2026. Any more questions? My friends. Fajar, go ahead.
Yeah, hello, PJ. Thank you. So normally, when a certification scheme updates their normative documents, whether it's a standard or the directive, etc., they give 12 months of transition period, a full 12 months. While in GGL, if we count in reality, your adoption period is January and February, and then effective date is from March. Transition period ends in December. That means only 10 months of transition period. So
that sounds like a perfect topic to give us feedback upon through the forms and let us know. I hear you.
You always know how to kill my mood, man.
Yes, I do. But I tell you also, Fajar, honestly, as a certification body, we're having this call now on the 13th of November. You know it's coming. When you schedule audits, you can already now reflect the fact that we're having this time schedule. That said, we are familiar with how other schemes do it, and do give this point as a point of feedback. And so in practice, I think your suggestion is to have the transition period end at the 2nd of March 2026 or the 1st of March rather than the 31st of December. Sorry, 2nd of March 2027 rather than the 31st of December 2026. Understood?
Yeah.
And noted.
Okay, thank you.
Robin.
Okay, thank you.
There's the button. Yes, thanks, PJ. A general question. As you know, certification bodies are accredited by accreditation bodies, right? And there also certain scope elements and also certain version numbers are included. So I assume that every certification body in this call is now accredited towards the GGL certification regulation version 7 point something.
Correct.
I think it was. Meaning that you implement certification regulation version 8.0 by next year means that no certification body currently actually meets those requirements from GGL, right?
Fair enough.
Have you taken that into consideration? Because I assume nobody from my colleagues here wants to receive any kind of major NCs from accreditation body by not having the correct scope in their accreditation scope.
Yeah, thank you for this point, Robin. So I think one thing you can expect from us is that we will be discussing with RVO, particularly around the recognition for SD+, how this new documentation works with SD+. And just to zoom in on SD+ first, actually you will see if you read through the documents that it stays the same. All the old versions that were approved for SD+ survive well through all of the adoption of the new documents for FIT-FIP.
But RVO is not an accreditation body, right? So I assume you mean RVA as well? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So RVO recognizes us as a scheme under SDE+, and RVA accredits you as certification bodies against the scheme that is recognized by RVO. So it's a different order of discussion, but the same point. But for FIT-FIP, it is slightly different. There, the same effective adoption and transition period dates apply to you as certification bodies too. So you can expect that we will be coming back to you and suggesting or asking you to update the accreditation that you have for FitFip to reflect the latest document versions, and that we will be the ones discussing with the accreditation bodies. There's two. There's COM in Indonesia, and there's the Singaporean accreditation body. That with those two, we will be discussing that their certification bodies have until then and then to update their accreditation scopes. Well spotted. Thank you for the comment. Fajar, you still have your hand up. More questions to come, or was that it?
That was it. Okay, I've lowered my hand.
No worries. Is there any more questions that you have, my friends, at this point? So what we will do, send this updated version. It only has a new title, but I will share with you. And I will include in my response the question from Zudi about Principles 10 in GGLS1 regarding the mix and the formula for GHG emissions. If that's it, can we thank you for your time? Much appreciated to have such a big audience. At some point, we had 60 participants in the call. This is fantastic. And we wish you a very pleasant evening ahead in Asia, hopefully with better weather than we have over here. And can we promise that we will be back shortly to answer questions that you have, and that we look forward to your feedback and inputs through the stakeholder consultation procedure. Gentlemen and ladies, thank you very much, and have a good evening, day, or whatever is ahead of you. Thank you. Much appreciated. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Vijay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Paul. See you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Zullen we er even blijven hangen, Paul, Jacob en Judith?
Ja, dat is goed. Zullen we dat in een andere call doen even? Is het niet makkelijker? Zal ik jullie even opbellen?
Ja, is goed.
Ga ik hier.
Heel lief.